Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, April 22nd. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. Expect rain in the San Antonio area for the next few days. We're looking at a high of just 69 degrees today. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced Wednesday the Justice Department is opening up a sweeping investigation into police practices in Minneapolis after a former officer was convicted in the killing of George Floyd there. In political news a little closer to home, the possibility of Matthew McConaughey as a candidate for Texas governor was one of the topics of conversation in this week's episode of the Express News' Puro Politics podcast. Check it out in the link in this episode's description. And now let's move on to the top stories for the day. While elated with the verdicts against Derek Chauvin, Spurs coach Greg Popovich said Wednesday, justice has not been realized yet and that structural changes are needed to guard against police misconduct. That's just one of the reasons he supports Prop B. Other high-profile members of the Spurs family, like Tim Duncan, have also offered political endorsements. But no other member of the organization has been more outspoken when it comes to politics than Popovich, whose frequent criticism of Trump over the last 4 years cost the Spurs season ticket holders and sponsors. Wednesday, Popovich also bashed critics who contended that reform is code for defunding the police. We can't listen to the bullcrap anymore. The argument about defunding, whoever came up with the defunding phrase, was ignorant because it's just now used to fight against accountability for police departments. Read more about Popovich's comments and some San Antonians' reactions over at expressnews.com. A planned multi-million-dollar mixed-use development would transform a section of the Riverwalk and inject more housing, offices, hotels, and retail into downtown San Antonio. A group of local landowners, investors, and developers are looking to build the project dubbed River Place on about 3.2 acres on both sides of the San Antonio River, north of Martin Street. Plans call for apartments, condominiums, offices, retail, parking, and 2 hotel sites, including a hotel announced last year that will be built by New York-based Dream Hotel Group and will anchor the project. Madison Eisler has more on the project in her latest article. A bill that would dictate on which sports teams transgender athletes can compete in public schools was declared all but dead on Wednesday by Representative Harold Dutton, the Public Education Committee chair who presided over an emotionally charged debate over it. The bill drew criticism from more than 1,000 employees across the state and the NCAA, which threatened to cancel future sports championships in the state if it were enacted. Taylor Goldstein has more in her latest article. Elena Ayala writes, quote, Deborah Mwala Jarman has roots in Selma, Alabama, and calls herself a child of people who knew what it was like to drink from separate water fountains, the ones labeled colored. The San Antonian has 2 sons who've been pulled over by police for no good reason other than driving while black. So she wasn't moved by Tuesday's verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. I was praying it would be so, she said, but she also said, I'm old enough to know that it's not over. There will be a sentencing, there will be appeals, but will there be systematic change? You can read Elena Ayala's full column over on our website. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. Budget carrier JetBlue Airways plans to offer service from San Antonio International Airport to New York and Boston in the fall, a needed boost for an airport that lost more than half of its flights to the pandemic. San Antonio could make Cesar Chavez Day a paid holiday for municipal employees to honor the Mexican-American civil rights icon and labor leader, but city officials would have to figure out how to pay for it. Over the last week, San Antonio law enforcement agencies have been involved in 4 separate fatal shootings, 2 of them occurring on the same day. In at least 3 cases, officers were returning fire. The city of San Antonio's effort to wiggle out of a more than $2 million legal tab owed to online travel booking companies went before the U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday. Texas Republicans have been swift to condemn the Biden administration for rescinding early approval of a multi-billion-dollar Medicaid program. But the decision could end up being one of the biggest steps yet to extend government health coverage to low-income people in Texas since the Affordable Care Act. A local restaurant manager is accused of groping several of his underage employees, according to an arrest affidavit. Taylor Petaway has more in her latest article. Rental developments that get funding from the city of San Antonio could soon lose that money if they deny tenants that pay with housing vouchers. The mother of a toddler missing since January is scheduled for trial on June 16th, according to court records. Court documents state Delaney Shirez intentionally and knowingly concealed her son James Avi Shirez from 2 investigations. A day before the first anniversary of the killing of Vanessa Guillen, the Texas House overwhelmingly passed a resolution Wednesday paying tribute to the soldier's life and vowing to change the system that led to her death. 3 of 4 candidates in the 2 contested races for Boerne Independent School District Board seats are mothers of students in district schools making their first try at elected office. We have everything you need to know about that race over on our website. Mixley, the progressive Mexican restaurant that closed last year to prepare to a move to Southtown, is a step closer to reopening, possibly as early as the first week of June. Embedded in and caused by Biden's rescue plan was a fight over federal versus states' rights, writes business columnist Michael Taylor. Find out why he thinks the fight over states' rights is all about money this time. At the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, leaders at San Antonio-based Fisher Heck Architects watched project after project be put on hold. Months later, they hired another 4 employees to keep up with an abundance of work. The bulk of Fisher Heck's work is in historic preservation and religious architecture. But the firm wants to beef up its higher education projects, President Mark Navarro said. Navarro, a San Antonio native and Texas A&M University alumnus, recently discussed his approach to religious architecture, technology advances in the industry, and how the pandemic has affected the firm. Read our Q&A with him over at expressnews.com. A converted football player, yes, football player, Steel senior Trey Haynes has transformed into one of the state's top girl wrestlers. She'll attempt to defend her state championship on Saturday. As part of our hunt for the best tortillas in San Antonio, we have the 5 best tortillerias downtown and on the south side. Paul Steven is your guide. If you crave suspense, mystery, and horror, streaming services are happy to oblige. Those elements and more can be found in 10 gems that are either already available or coming to screen soon. Live shows are like high school reunion for fans of a band that was big here in the early 90s. Now, more than a generation later, Passing Strangers is back, and so are the fans. In the latest Animals Matter column, Kathy M. Rosenthal writes, quote, "The key is patience and learning to respect your pet's wishes when it comes to things like petting." And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing for Thursday, April 22nd. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.